Hey everyone, sorry I can't be here today. Um, First, we're going to just touch quickly on a couple of things and then get to the bulk of what I want you to do today. We are ready to talk about the different types of market structures. We've talked about business structures, but now we're going to learn about different ways a market can work. And we're going to start by looking at what is called a purely competitive or a perfectly competitive market. Very quickly, we have a very large number of firms in a perfectly competitive market. These firms have no control over the price. The market equilibrium price is what they will sell their good at, um, and there's very little they can do to influence that besides changing the amount, their quantity supplied. It's very easy for a firm to get involved into a purely competitive market. It's very easy for a firm to leave. And most of the goods that get produced in a purely competitive market are standardized. That means they're going to be the same regardless of who's producing them. So agriculture provides us a great example of the type of firm that might be operating in a perfectly competitive market. We'll talk about other market structures on another day. We've always been assuming we've been in a perfectly competitive market, and now we know we are for sure. And we're going to continue that assumption the rest of today. In pure competition, we consider firms to be price takers. That means they have to take the market price. They have no control or ways of changing the price, or if they do, they're going to lose anyone purchasing from them. Because in a purely competitive market, firms are price takers, the demand curve for an individual firm is going to be perfectly elastic or perfectly horizontal. That means, again, that the individual firm has no control over what the price is. And because of that, we know now that our demand curve is going to equal the price, which is also going to equal the marginal revenue, and which will also equal the average revenue, or the amount of revenue divided by the number of products produced. There are two ways that a firm in a perfectly competitive market can calculate their profit. The first is by taking the total revenue and subtracting out the total cost. Again, we're operating in the short run here, assuming that these firms can't change their plant capacity. There are two important concepts when we're looking at total revenue and total cost. The point, if you were to graph these lines where total revenue and total cost are equal to each other, is the break-even point. At that point, all the money that they're making, that they're taking in, is considered normal profit. Normal profit is the amount of money you need to cover the cost of production. Any revenue beyond a normal profit is economic profit. So if we were to look at this schedule down here, where TP is our total product, TR is our total revenue, TC is our total cost, and then P/L is the profit or loss, we can figure out how to use the total revenue and total cost method of calculating profit. It's simple. You take your total revenue, you subtract your total cost, and that will tell you if you have a profit or loss, with positive numbers being profit and negative numbers being loss. So if this firm doesn't produce at all, they're going to take a loss of 2. Go ahead and pause this video and take a minute to complete this chart. All right, I'm going to assume that you've paused and finished this chart on your own now. So let's look at what the actual profit or loss margins look like. This is for the same firm. You can see that starting off, we're going to increase our losses, but eventually turn a profit once we get to the second unit of production. A firm is going to want to produce at the point where their profit is the greatest. So this firm, since they have no control over the price, will choose to produce at TP of 8, or a quantity of 8. The other way in which firms can calculate profit is called the MR, the marginal revenue equals marginal cost method. Firms want to produce at or above the point where the marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost. Now this gets a little tricky to calculate. There are two ways to do it. The way your book is going to tell you to do it, I think is a little confusing. So what I would do is, when I was looking at the cost and revenue schedule for a firm, at each level of production, I would take the marginal revenue and subtract the marginal cost from that. Plus, I would add the profit or loss from the previous unit of production. So if we go just look at this fast, we can see we have a marginal revenue column right here, marginal cost column here. So to calculate, I would take the marginal revenue of 15, subtract the marginal cost of 5, and then add in whatever profit or loss was made at the previous level. So since we were looking at 1, I would add in the profit or loss that was occurring at the point of production where they're not producing anything. Another way to calculate, which might be a little bit easier, is to take the quantity of price minus the average total cost and multiply that by the quantity. That is going to come up with the exact same answer as the previous way of calculating it. It is important to remember that in perfect competition, our price is our marginal revenue at every level of production. Now, it gets a little tricky that sometimes a firm in a perfectly competitive market will still operate at a loss. When that is the case, when they have no choice but to operate at a loss, they're not going to be able to maximize their profit. Rather, they're going to want to minimize their loss or engage in loss minimization. The only time a firm will operate at a loss is as long as that loss is less than the fixed cost. That means they're recouping some of their initial investment. Firms will shut down or will not operate at all is if the loss is greater than or equal to the fixed cost. The fact that the firm will shut down, then there's no way they're going to recoup any of their investment is known as the shutdown rule. So go ahead and use the marginal revenue equals marginal cost method to calculate the profit or loss for this firm at price point 15. Go ahead and pause the video and figure this out. Assuming you've paused the video now, you've calculated it, let's go through the answers. At no production, we have a total cost of 10, no marginal revenue because we're not selling anything. So that means we have a loss of $10. At one level of production, our marginal revenue is 15, our marginal cost is 5. You subtract 5 from 15 and get 10, and then you add it to the level before that, which is negative 10, and that gives you a break-even point. You're not making a profit and you're not experiencing a loss. Again, you could also take your price, subtract the average total cost, so 15 minus 15 is 0, times 1 is 0. So it's price minus ATC times quantity should come up with the same answer. So at our second level of production, our marginal revenue is 15. Again, marginal revenue will always be whatever the price is. Our marginal cost is 1. That leaves us with 14 plus 0 equals 14. And then again, price 15 minus 8 is 7 of the average total cost, times 2 is 14. Again, either way comes up with the same answer. And you could see and continue on, we see eventually 25, 30, and 30. A firm in this situation is going to want to produce either 4 or 5 units of whatever product they're making. Things change, though, if the price changes. Here we have the same firm, however, instead of the price being $15 per unit, it is now $5 per unit. Go ahead and pause the video and calculate the profit or loss at each level of production. Again, assuming you've paused the video and calculated this now, again, our profit or loss will always start out with a loss of whatever our total cost is, or whatever our fixed cost is, our initial investment. Then our marginal revenue, again, all the way up and down the column is 5, because that's what the price is going to be 5 minus 5 is 0. Add that to our previous one, we're still at negative 10. At the second unit of production, we gain 5 more in revenue. We lose $1 in cost, so that's 4. 4 plus negative 10 is negative 6. And also, again, you can use the other method of calculating this, which is take 5 minus 8, which is negative 3, times 2, gets you negative 6. And so on and so forth. And we see that this firm at the $5 price point is always going to be operating at a loss. However, this firm will still continue to operate. Since their fixed cost is $10, they have points below that $10 that they can operate. This firm would operate producing 3 units, minimizing its loss at negative $5. And then finally, we can look at the same situation, the same firm. However, this price point is now $2. Again, please pause the video, calculate the profit or loss for this firm at each level of production. So this firm, again, is going to always be operating at a loss. However, which makes it different at the $2 price point is there is never a point where the loss is less than the initial fixed cost. So this firm would actually shut down or never enter the market. Now that you've watched this video, you're going to complete a worksheet that's going to ask you to calculate a variety of different costs, including revenues and profit and loss. Do fill this out and do it diligently. Once you're done with that, you're going to come back to Canvas and take the quiz on short-run profit and loss. That quiz is going to ask you for your answers from particular cells on this worksheet, so you must finish the worksheet first.